Welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Curious podcast, where I am joined by my co-host and co-founder and little brother, Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm well. I am sitting on the closet floor of our parents' closet because we are having family time. And I'm hoping that a trash truck doesn't drive by or someone opens the door and hits me in the head or someone flushes the toilet. So, bear with me.
All things are possible,
All things.
but
I
whatever it
mean,
takes to get the podcast done.
it's whatever it takes. We're here to sacrifice how we need to. It's a little hot in here too, so if I start schwitzing, it's because there's no air vent in here either. So
And I had to move to a remote location to record this to make this work.
yes, I threw you out to go to your friend's house.
We're graciously
You
hosted, so
you graciously opted out
yes, I did.
to go to somewhere else. Well, just like everyone's family vacation fun, we are talking about Wimbledon, which can also be fun. Wimbledon starts on Monday, July 3rd, which is very exciting. So let's talk a little bit about Wimbledon and let's give the people what they want. Forget who to watch right now. Let's start off with why people wear white at Wimbledon. Why is this a tradition?
All right, so we're starting out with the white. First of all, Wimbledon's the third of the four major tennis tournaments of the season, so we're right in the thick of things. And since it's during the summer, they wear white. Actually, it is tradition to wear white, but I think it was instituted because of sweat by the All English Tennis Club. So they're trying to get rid of sweat marks.
They were really trying to hook the players up, right? They're like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, well, we know it's London in the summer and it's warm and they don't have air conditioning everywhere. So let's toss you a white.
Mm-hmm. I know, speaking from experience, I would appreciate white rather than gray or, a light blue that shows sweat during the summer.
We'd like you all to wear pastel colors. I hope you
Yes.
enjoy the sweat, the pit stains.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because you really, I think, was it Serena who wore, she had a controversial outfit a couple years ago at Wimbledon, but I mean, they're pretty dead on. Nobody really pushes the envelope at Wimbledon. You don't really mess with the All England Tennis Club because they mean business.
Yeah, they don't mess around. They don't let anyone appeal or go outside the rules. Even fans like in the royal box, they're required to, dress up and wear suit coats. So there's no exceptions made.
Wasn't it Lewis Hamilton, who's the world champion F1 driver, who's won what 6 times, I think? He's British, and he went to the royal box
Mm-hmm.
at Wimbledon in center court, and he did not wear a sport coat, and he was not allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't care.
No, so if Lewis Hamilton, who's British royalty, who's been knighted, can't mess with the rules, nobody can.
They're like, we don't care who you are, random tennis player.
No.
So, but Wimbledon is uptight, right? It sounds uptight at least, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be fun. There's Pimm's cups. If anyone's ever had Pimm's, it's a nice little cocktail that you can have and enjoy. They've served what I think I read 276,000 glasses of Pimm's, fish and chips. They do strawberries and cream. I mean, there's a party that happens there.
Over 276,000 in 2 weeks, so there's definitely some day partying going on.
As you do. I
Have
mean,
you
why
had
wouldn't you, right?
have you had Pimm's?
I have. And where were we? When I went to a Wimbledon party, actually, in England, it was not around Wimbledon, it was somewhere else, but
Mm-hmm.
we had Pimm's. And they serve it big pitcher. It's lovely. It's just kind of a lovely Pimm's itself, the liquor
Mm-hmm.
is not lovely, but you mix it with a little bubbly, and then I highly recommend it
Acceptable.
if you would like to bring a little, flavor to your 4th of July party, which seems odd to drink an English drink at 4th of July, but if you want to go that route, definitely add in some Pimm's.
So acceptable to drink in the hot weather, sitting watching tennis.
Basically,
Okay.
yes. Think of like a English version of sangria,
Okay.
if that helps.
That's acceptable.
That's acceptable. So one thing about wearing white and drinking Pimm's, obviously you don't want to spill on yourself, but one thing that Wimbledon really thinks about, because they're really considerate, is the bird poop that could happen on your white clothes. So they have a hawk called Rufus the Hawk, who has his own Instagram page, of course. And talk to me a little about Rufus the Hawk.
Yeah, Rufus is now Instagram celebrity. He's an influencer. He's a hawk to prevent any bird poop from getting on your white clothes or in your Pimm's cup. They have Rufus who flies around the grounds of Wimbledon to scare away all the pigeons and takes his
As
job
you,
extremely seriously.
I could use one of these. Like, imagine if you had one of these at your house.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be lovely. Or around the park.
Yeah, I don't think Rufus, we can't afford Rufus house calls.
That's probably, and I don't like birds, so that would really be. I think a
Mm-hmm.
hawk as a pet would probably not fall in that category for me.
Nope, but that's why it works at Wimbledon.
Yeah, they're serious. They're serious. It's actually I think it's interesting because it's not something anyone would ever really think about, right? Like that's just a hazard of the attending an outdoor event. But
Mm-hmm.
apparently they take it very seriously, and he flies around 9 a.m. every morning to discourage the birds from roosting and setting up shop there. So there you have it, because those are pigeons are probably flying around trying to get some leftover fish and chips, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So as we roll into this year's tournament, who should we be watching for?
Let's see. So on the men's side, it's no real surprise who we're watching. It's Novak Djokovic. He's won the past 4 Wimbledons in a row. So he's just pretty much unstoppable. He's won 23 Grand Slam titles, which he's tied with Serena for the record. And I mean, he's the last remaining of the big 3, which was Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. And they've just been dominating for 20 years.
And he just won his 23rd Grand Slam title at the French Open, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
which is on clay, and
Yes.
Wimbledon is on grass, correct?
Yeah. So he's dominant on every surface, the hard surface of Australian Open, US Open, clay for the French Open, and then grass for Wimbledon. So he's really one of a kind that can dominate all surfaces.
So one thing I want to ask,
Mm-hmm.
going back to the grass courts, if you watch over the course, especially the center court where they play the big matches, where the big names play, the grass gets worn down throughout that 2 weeks. And it doesn't appear to me that they change it out or they replace it. So they're obviously the ball bounces differently as you look at it on fresh grass versus
Mm-hmm.
played on for 2 weeks grass. How does that change things up? Do you know?
Yeah, as you watch the tournament, the grass at the baseline where everyone stands, where they serve, just starts to get worn down. And normal grass, the ball's not going to fly off the surface as hard, so it's coming up a little bit softer. But I imagine as it dies and gets a little bit harder, the ball's going to come off a little bit faster.
And I would imagine kind of unpredictable, right? Like if you think about
Mm-hmm.
on a baseball field, you may not know, especially if it's not your home field, you may not know how the ball bounces on that grass.
So
And
yeah,
that's why they
little
call it home field advantage in baseball.
yes.
But I guess you don't really have home field advantage in Wimbledon unless you've just played there so many
I think
times.
Novak might
Yeah, I mean, I think everywhere is home field advantage for
for
him.
him. Yeah, and he's not even the top seed coming into this tournament. It's Carlos Alcaraz, who Novak just outlasted in the French Open. Alcaraz came up with these crazy cramps and could barely even walk. But
Oh,
Novak's what, like 16, 17 years older than him and had no problem. So
he's just
it'll
a
be
machine.
interesting to see. Yeah, he's just mentally and physically just above everybody else at this point.
Well, he's played longer, so he probably knows
Mm-hmm.
exactly what his body needs, right?
Yeah.
He goes and gets a liquid IV during the break and whatever else he might need, that he's ready to go for the heat, because that's a huge factor. I mean,
Yes.
playing outside in the heat in the direct sun. I believe, if I'm not wrong, center court does have a roof, though, does it not?
I believe so.
Okay, I thought
I
so
think all the
too.
major tennis tournaments do to avoid weather delays.
Right. I mean, it makes sense, right? Okay, so we've
Mm-hmm.
got Carlos and Novak, one,
Yes.
two. We've got Iga Swiatek on the women's side, who is
Mm-hmm.
basically the world number one, and no one else really comes close to being a favorite in this tournament besides her.
No, and I just saw that she she had to pull out of the tournament a few days ago, leading up to Wimbledon with a fever and food poisoning. So we'll see how that affects her going forward.
So she just pulled out of practice, but she's still
Yeah, there's like
playing in the
they
tournament.
do like the warm up tournaments before on grass to kind of get used to
Okay.
it. So I don't think it'll affect her. She's never actually won Wimbledon,
Oh,
despite being ranked number one. But coming into it, she's pretty much unstoppable.
well, that's incredible. And we have Coco Gauff on the women's side for the Americans,
Hmm.
who's ranked number 7. And also for the U.S. on the men's side, we have Taylor Fritz and Francis Tiafoe, who are number 8, number 9, respectively. But I mean, they're don't count them out. You never know, right?
No, no, I think these Americans they go over for like 2 months and to Europe and they go from clay to grass to get used to it. So they've been over there for quite a while, getting used to that surface. So I think both those guys have a pretty good chance. And Coco really came to into the national spotlight when she was 15 at Wimbledon. So I think she's 19 now, so she's really got some experience coming in.
Um, and one other person we want to watch for is Venus Williams is going to be there this year. And she is getting ready to set a record of her own, right?
Yeah, she's what is it, her 24th tournament, which is more than any one ever in history, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she'll break a tie for the most appearances at Wimbledon over any player at 24. I mean, that's pretty incredible. She's not that old to have that long of a career when it really comes down to it,
No, and she just keeps showing up and playing. I think I saw a quote that she's said she wouldn't mind playing till she's 50.
which she's
So
probably in her early 40s now.
I think, yeah, early 42, 43-ish. So
Okay. I
she'll stick
mean,
around and keep playing. Why not?
but if you show up and you can get into it, right?
Hmm.
She's a name for one thing. She may not have maybe the record or whatever that might be, but she's a name, especially with her sister out.
Hmm.
It's pretty incredible if you can maximize that and be able to really um, continue to maximize your career that you've worked hard for, and you don't have to necessarily always win.
No,
But
no,
she plays in oh, sorry.
just like having a Williams sister in the draw just brings extra eyes to the tournament, no matter what.
Because she has a fashion line now, 11, I believe it's called. And then she's played doubles in a couple tournaments that lately, hasn't she?
I think most players play doubles, either mixed, which is man woman, or same sex woman and women. So yeah, most players do. They double up in these tournaments just to keep playing, make more money.
Oh, interesting. You think it would wear you out, but
Yeah,
it makes
like
sense.
Coco Gauff and Jess Pagula, another American, they play doubles every tournament, and they're pretty much they play every other day basically,
And
and
Jess is kind
double
of
as well.
fun. Jess Pagula is kind of fun because there was an interview. What did she win? Not that long ago, where she was drinking a Bud Light at her press conference. Do you
Hmm.
remember that?
That was the U.S. Open. Yeah, that was after a loss, unfortunately.
And she was playing well, lost, and she just like cracked open a Bud Light there during her press conference and enjoyed it. And I find that kind of following her on social, she seems
Hmm.
very normal, for lack of a better word.
Yes, especially considering her background, as her parents own the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres, so she seems pretty down to earth and low key
I
enough to
mean,
drink a beer right after.
I was gonna say, you know what? Screw it, guys. I lost. Let me crack open this beer. It'll help a
Hmm.
little bit. Here we
Yeah.
go. I before we close up, I want to talk a little bit about Russian and Belarusian athletes and
Hmm.
Ukrainian athletes. So last year, the tournament banned Russian and Belarusian athletes due to the invasion of Ukraine,
Hmm.
and this year they're allowing those athletes back under certain stipulations, which include um, they cannot use their flags or any sign of support for either of the countries. Players required, to sign a declaration stating that they will not support for Russia, Belarus, or the war in Ukraine,
Hmm.
and the tournament itself will not be broadcast in Russia or Belarus. Can you talk to me about what they're doing for Ukrainian athletes? I know they've kind of stepped their game up for allowing Ukrainian athletes to attend.
And then yeah, and last year they banned those players, which affected people's world rankings. They didn't get points for playing in Wimbledon, so it affects a lot of the ratings. So they're back this year. And then as far as Ukraine, Wimbledon is donating a portion of every ticket sale towards the war in Ukraine, and then also covering the cost for 2 rooms for each player.
Which is cool. So they're allowing them to come pay for some
Mm-hmm.
of their team to be there, but then they're obviously giving, I think it's about $1.25 US dollars
Per
to the
ticket.
relief efforts in Ukraine. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to see how it's a really tough situation, right? You're on a global scale and you're a global tennis association. It's interesting to see how they've modified that. So thanks for sharing that with us. Before we close, I want to talk a little bit about one of my favorite little like fun facts. Can you tell the people why tennis balls are yellow?
It's they haven't always been yellow, so it's it's kind of interesting. They used to be white or black before they became yellow. Yellow wasn't for any for like performance for the players or improve gameplay. It was actually to increase the visibility of the ball on TV.
Which it's been around since the 80s, which I thought that was kind of interesting because
Mm-hmm.
it's not that long ago. I mean, yes, it is 40 years ago now, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem like that long ago. I think everyone's always remembered tennis balls being this obnoxious yellow neon color. So kind of interesting. They used to be black and white, but thanks to TV, they are now yellow. And I can't wait for them to do that with hockey and a couple other sports where I can't see. So,
Yeah,
well, let's
seeing
wrap
these
with,
massive
go ahead.
serves of 150 miles an hour, it
Yeah.
is pretty tough to see a white ball.
A white tennis ball against
Yeah.
a white
Hmm.
outfit for Wimbledon. Well, Wimbledon runs from Monday, July 3rd to Sunday, July 16th and can be watched on ABC, ESPN, and the Tennis Channel. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
Um, we'll get to see Rufus the Hawk.
I hope they give Rufus a little love on the broadcast. We can see him, check him
They
out.
usually do. They'll show him like pop up in front of the camera, looking for pigeons.
Watching for pigeons.
Hmm.
Well, also happening at the same time in Europe is the Tour de France. So if you are into great scenery, you can watch tennis and then watch castles and cute little European towns on that. So lots of stuff happening in Europe right now in the world of sports
Oh, and the F1 race next weekend. So there's all
and
kinds
the
of
F1
stuff going
race.
on.
There's all kinds of things happening. So, well, thanks for joining me. Thanks for talking tennis with me. I look forward to having you back for good old fashioned family summer
Hmm.
fun here soon.
From the closet or undisclosed location.
Yeah. Well, and I should say to you because we're getting ready to roll we're in July and it is Scott birthday season. So happy early birthday, Scott.
I don't like that at all. So thank you.
That's exactly why I did it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.